find, and I believe Bug Club Morphology does this, they sort them into morphemes that are bound and morphemes that are free. Like it really doesn't matter. Essentially, we just have to keep in mind that depending on the morpheme, it's probably going to have a different role inside the makeup of the word. The morpheme itself is the smallest unit of language that still holds some meaning. And as we know, sometimes those morphemes are a single letter, and it might not be something we know right off the get. So don't panic if that's something that you're like, what are you even talking about? That's not where we start. So don't panic about that. But we have bases, and those are the ones that have the main meaning part of the word. And then those can be further sorted into free, which you would recognize as a word all by itself, like the word read, R-E-A-D. It's a word. It's also a morpheme because I can't break that word down into any smaller parts. And there's also bound bases. And when you first start doing this work, you're probably not going to recognize those. But if they're all by themselves, you would identify it probably as a spelling error if your kids wrote it that way. But when they're attached to an affix, then we see them as a word, and that's where we get a sense and meaning. We have an example today of a twin base, so we're going to dig into that a little bit. But essentially, it's when a single Latin verb has given us multiple bases to build language, and they're all related. They can all go to the family reunion together. They just don't sit on the same blanket. And then we have affixes, which are the stuff that we add to the basis, the accessories, if you will. And as we add those affixes, it changes or impacts the meaning or sense of the word. And then one of the types of affixes, now I've said this before, but I fell down a little bit of like a discussion rabbit hole about whether a connecting vowel letter is actually a morpheme or if it's a word building element, because it doesn't actually hold meaning. It's just like that little dab of glue that holds the other affixes on. Like, you do you, but I am not going to stress out about pointing that out to my students. Maybe if they were older, we'd have like a philosophical discussion about it. But in the great scheme of how we sort these words, it's something we're adding on to the base. So I'm going to call it an affix until someone who's way smarter than me tells me I'm wrong. Okay, Lan, what do you got for the hot seat this week, month? I keep saying
I'm
month.
actually, I mean, I was going to do emotion, but that story came out now, but I'm actually wondering, because we talked a little bit about the ITY in your share just a bit earlier here. What about the word possibility?
Ooh.
Like this will be a good one, I think.
That one's a tricky one. Okay. Okay, so we've got impossibles in the family. IBLE is a suffix. TY, possibly. I think we might have a situation where there's been like a vowel shift somewhere in there, right? Because possibly, okay. I actually don't know. I'm not sure what the base might be. If it's possible, ILE. SIBE. POS.
Well, and I think you're on to something when you say like impossible, right? So if we try to prove that we've got that POSS, I guess if we brainstormed a few of the words that are in that family, which we think, right, would be.
Right. So this is where I think we've got a vowel shifting thing has gone on there to get that extra syllable piece in. So maybe it's like a connecting vowel letter situation. Wow. I keep thinking of the word posse, but I know that like, I don't think posse is connected to this in any way.
I think you might be surprised.
Oh, maybe it is. Okay. Well, maybe that, I'm not confident that's the base. SIBE maybe, but I can't think of another word that would have POS as a or prefix that's making. This is a good one, Lan.
I know, and well, and again, just because you said that, that TY, when we're looking at suffixes and how it's labeled, say in the curriculum, with the ITY, what's the role of that I? I think
Well, I know
it's,
that BLE and well, there's ABLE as a suffix. I don't know if IBLE, maybe IBLE as a suffix.
well, IBLE can be a suffix like IBLE and ABLE, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think there's, yeah, I think there's some sort of weird vowel shifting thing going on there. Okay, now I gotta go look because that's how this works. It was possibility, right? Was the original?
Yeah, possibility. Yeah.
Okay. So, late 14th century being possible, possibilité from Old French, directly from Latin. I don't speak Latin. Literally meaning possibility. Possibilis, see possible. Okay. I will see possible. From posse. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. To be able, but not posse like a group.
No.
So
So your whole guess on like say possible, like is the IBLE as the
that, yeah. But it's
topic, right?
connected to potent.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Powerful. Potens. Potus.
Well, to be able to be, to be able is to be powerful, right? To have power.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna go back here because
Yeah.
gonna do some Latin digging here. So LatDict is the Latin dictionary. Now I'm looking up a noun right now, so that's not going to help us necessarily because, or sorry, an adjective. It doesn't follow the same rules. But we can see here we've got the BIL, like we've got some structure that we've clearly borrowed in our English spelling to the Latin spelling. But I'm going to go back here because this is.
And is that because it is, oh yes, the noun, right? So it's not going to pull that up as much as it. A LatDict.
Sometimes it doesn't pull up like the conjugations of it. Depends like where it is in the dictionary. So it's not pulling up these two Latin ones, but there's that possibilis.
So did you see Angela's? I found the base word possibilis, meaning that it can be done.
Yep.
Which is perfect, right? Because that possibility for sure.
And so we've got possible, and it says directly from Latin, possibilis. So we can see that there's an I missing out from the Latin into this English spelling. Now, the other place, the Oxford English Dictionary, not only does it give you like examples of previous spellings. So like in 1385, this was how it was spelt in Chaucer's Knight's Tale. So you can start to see how the language has changed over time, which I think is really interesting, right? 1480, we've got some extra Y's in there. But it becomes a really interesting conversation, perhaps with students to say, okay, what could possibly go wrong if we're all spelling this one word this many different ways? What confusions might come about? But one of the reasons I love this is they have an etymology section. And sometimes it tells us some of the stuff that's going on. So Anglo-Norman, Middle French, post-classical Latin. So here's that same bilitas, right? Classical Latin here, possible plus the ty suffix. If I go back to the actual word, that still doesn't explain the I that's showing up in like the possibility has the I from the original Latin. It doesn't explain where the I went. After exploring the hot seat word, we reached out to Mary Beth Stephen, who is our resource when it comes to words that we get stuck with. And this is what she had to say about our investigation. What you've noticed is the difference between possibility and possible. I'm sure you've noticed the ancestors of possibility and the fact that the I between the B and the L is in Latin possibilitatum and also in possibilius. That's why you mentioned that we have lost the letter along the way. Good sleuthing. But why? I learned about this in Eric Mayer's class, Prosody and Asynchrony. It has to do with vowel reduction. The I was reduced to the point that it was excluded in the spelling of the word in English. Since we know the base of possible and possibility is posse, to be able, we can consider the IBLE and the IBILITY as two suffixes in this family. If you're wondering whether IBILITY can be further analyzed, I would say no. Perhaps we recognize an ITY, but we don't recognize the IBIL suffix. Because of that, we recognize this suffix as IBILITY. I've heard some call it a fuse suffix because even though parts look familiar, we can't parse it into more than one element. So today, what I picked for the word was the word assessment, not just because it's a word we talk about all the time in education, but because one of my students that I was helping with some social studies work, it said, assess the source, assess the perspective of the source. And so I was like, oh, interesting. So it's not just a teacher word, it can be an everybody word. So when I look at the word assessment, I am pretty confident that we have AS as an assimilated form of AD. So AS as a prefix, SESS as the bound base, and then MENT as a suffix. So with this information in mind, so we look at the word assessment here, and I thought this was super cool. It was originally meant to talk about property taxes. Like, isn't that hilarious? I think that's funny. Anyway, so the value of one's property for tax purposes, ASSESS plus MENT. The act of determining or adjusting a tax rate, charges, or damages to be paid is from the 1540s. Your tax assessment precedes education jargon, which was 1956. That's hilarious. That's a baby. In that sense, the sense we use it is very new in the great scheme of language. Okay, so it says check out assess and MENT. So I'm going to click on assess, and early 15th century to fix the amount of a tax or a fine. So we have Anglo-French here, medieval Latin, another Latin here as sitting by, a past participle of assidere or adsidere, to sit beside. And I know you've all seen, who's the assessment guy that always talks about like the meaning of this word is, can't remember if it's like Wiggins or maybe it's a Cooper. Anyways, so assessment means to assess, you're sitting beside them, right? As opposed to judging them. Although like I feel judged when my tax bill comes in, I'm not going to lie. So we see here that we have AD as predicted as a prefix, and then sedere to sit. So I'm going to take this SADEERE and plop it into my Latin dictionary. And what do I see here? So I see the SES. So when we look at a Latin verb, and this is the very last slide in the slide deck for anyone who's getting brave into the land of Latin, we look at the second and the fourth conjugation. So the second one is the infinitive, and the fourth one is the supine. So I take the US off the fourth one, and if there's ever an IT or an AT next to that, it comes off too. So I've got SESS as one base element. But then if I look at the second one, I also take off this ERE and I've got SED as a second base element. So this is an example of the very least of twin bases. So the verb sedere in Latin gave birth to two base elements that we use in English spelling. SED, like the word sediment, and SESS, the word assessment, right? This idea of sitting or settling, or encampment, but that's not what we're talking about. So the other thing I can do is paste, and this only works in the Windows version. This doesn't work on the app. You'll get like an error. It'd say like, there's no words, there's no entries. This only works on the computers, but I can look up sedere, and I can also see if there's other words that are not either of these, SED and SESS. And right away, I see this one here, SID, and I know ENCE is a suffix, so it'd be SIDE. So SIDE would also be a base element that comes to us from this verb. Now, this one I thought was really cool, that seance comes to us from there. It's like ripped off of the French. Obviously, it's a French word, but I don't know how they went from sedere to savoir. So that was kind of interesting. Here's another one, SED. So that makes sense. Sediment. See, spoiler alert, told you. This one I thought was awesome. Sedation. Right? So not that we want our assessments to sedate anyone, but they are connected as far as family lineage in meaning. So I personally really liked this word to dig into because it allows us to look at other words that share that same meaning or sense. And it can open up a really cool conversation, I think, with students that the original meaning meant to sit beside, well, originally we're talking about taxes, but to sit beside. And is that how assessments feel? Or does it have a different feeling to it? And then let's branch out. So I also wanted to show you ways that we could extend this learning. So to me, it's not just about looking at, this word this week and like we peace out and don't talk about it again. It's about looking at how I can use this one word to rabbit hole me down into all kinds of different places. So with the word of possibility, I might rabbit hole down some of those words with ITY as that Latin, straight from Latin suffix adaptation there. But for this particular word with assessment, what if we looked for other words that had the suffix ment? That might be fun. You can do a whole thing with assimilated prefixes because AD takes on multiple forms. And so we know that now AS is one of them. What are the other forms that we can come across with that particular prefix? You can provide students with a list of words which have that SESS in them and investigate if they're actually in the family or not. And I'll show you the website that helps us do that. And then you can also give them the sedere, that Latin word, to look in the Edym Online Dictionary to see if there's other relatives that they could find. So the other website that we use quite often is called Word Searcher, and it's the same guy that developed the Mini Matrix Maker. And essentially all this is looking for is spelling patterns. So just because it comes up in the list doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean all these words are related. It just means that these letters fall in this order in these many words. So if I look up SESS, I get a whole list of words. So I could give one keen group of kids the whole list. I could split the list into 5-6 parts and say, okay, this group gets this part, this group gets this part. Which of these are in the family? Which are not in the family? So one of the questions that I recently fielded from someone out in the community was, hey, I downloaded the Can Do Kids Academy resources, and like, how would you tell teachers to use this resource? So this is an interesting resource, in part because she's got a whole bunch of free stuff on her site, the Can Do Kids Academy website. I've never met this woman. I think she lives in Australia. But I love the stuff that she does. She comes up with some really great things, and they're aesthetically pleasing, which, to be fair, counts for a lot in my life. So she has free stuff on her website, and then she has this really great, well, she has two really great resources that you can download for $50 a piece. But the one I like goes through like all the parts of morphology, has some word matrices, has some things where you can build word sums. What I think, as far as how we use these resources, is we use our teacher brains and decide what part of them make the most sense to use with our kiddos at this point in time. None of these resources are designed for you to make like, here's a consumable booklet and we're going to work from front to back, because that is how we kill the fun, friends. So just think, like, what makes the most sense for us to talk about today? Oh, I want to talk about when we drop that single final non-syllabic E. When do we drop it? When do we keep it? Okay, let's do that. I want to talk about the word because my kids manage to spell it wrong all the time. Awesome. Then let's dig into it. And so quite often she pairs her resources with a read aloud, which of course Lana and I are like all over. And this is one I happen to pull. So this is a free download off of her website, and she shows the CAUSE family, cause. And one of the things that, as a fun fact around the word because, is it used to be by cause, and then it evolved over time to because. So why is this happening? Well, by cause of this and by cause of that. And so sometimes that little fun fact for your kiddos stops them from spelling it C-U-Z, and knows that there's more to the story than C-U-Z. Is it going to cure all spelling problems? No, it is not. But it might be enough to get some of those kiddos to think a little bit deeper about what they're writing on the page. So my observation or my offer to you is, whenever you're pulling a resource, no matter the resource, think about where your kids are at in their understanding of morphology concepts, and how can I use where my kids are at to talk about next steps. So here's another package that she had on there for a free download for the day the crayons quit. And she used it to explore a bunch of different concepts with her students. If my kids had some background information, I might assign one group to look for examples of words where we changed the Y to I when we built out the words. Maybe I'm going to assign to another group an example of when we are doubled that final consonant of that short vowel word, and we added the vowel suffix. Okay, find a word that does that. Can you think of another word that does that? I really liked the USE one, talk about use to uses, right? We're not just adding an S there, friends, because we've changed the syllabication of the word. So if you increase in the number of syllables in a word, when you've pluraled it, you've added ES, even though it might look like all you've done is added S. So my best advice, and I know that's like a non-answer, but that's the answer. We need to know where our kids are at, and we need to know where they're going in order to help them along the way. So hopefully, between the information that you gather through your own professional learning and the expectations of the curriculum, we can figure that out. We can figure out what the next steps are. And like all good things, this isn't the only time we talk about the doubling of that final consonant. We talk about it a lot. We look for it a lot. We have a poster where we collect words, where we see it happening in our own reading, and then maybe we use those words for further investigation down the road. We just want to be curious about the words around us.